Teddy Talks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Teddy Talks After Hours, where we pause, rewind, and unpack the episode. So this one is for grown-ups only. Maybe the kids are off to school, maybe they're off to bed. So now Byron and I can talk straight up to the parents and educators out there listening about this episode. So I'm here with Dr. Byron McClure, our guest on Teddy Talks, author of Hacking Deficit Thinking, founder of the Strengths-Based Collective, and fun fact, one of my school psychologist BFFs, we've known each other for years. And when I knew we were doing this episode on helping kids understand and appreciate their strengths, I was like, I know exactly the guy. So I'm so excited that you're here, Byron.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've learned so much from you. I credit a good portion of my success, as a school psychologist, but then transitioning outside of that domain to you and just some of the wisdom that you share. So it only makes sense that you have this platform sharing your wisdom with everyone.
And I want the collective wisdom. So that's why I brought you in here. So Byron, this episode was all about strengths, which I know is one that is important to you personally. That's why I brought you here. So in this episode, the Teddy twins learned in your Teddy Talk that we aren't always good at everything, but there's power in knowing your strengths and having a growth mindset about things you're not so good at. So can you first elaborate a little bit for those who don't know what a growth mindset is and why that's important?
Yeah, a growth mindset is important. The easiest way to explain it is through this concept of the power of yet. So often what happens, as an example, I know that I wasn't the best student in math. And I had someone tell me, you're not strong at math yet. And what that did, it puts me in this mindset, this frame of, okay, so I can get better. I can grow. I can acquire those skills. Unfortunately, what happens, and what happened to me, is that you're told this thing that you're not good. You don't have these skills. You'll never be. And that's this, I guess the opposite of a growth mindset would be a fixed mindset, to where you can only reach so far. You can only have this level of success, which isn't necessarily true. And so the power of a growth mindset and the power of this concept of you can attain these things. And a key feature of that is being able to develop those skills over time, being able to be flexible in your thinking so that you can attain a level of success. And Rebecca, guess what? I can do math, I can do subtraction, I can do division, I can do multiplication, and I'm pretty good. And those skills that I didn't have, I was able to get them. Another reason why this work is so important to me, as a practitioner, as a psychologist, I work with students who they do have documented challenges. And I want to be clear, I am not saying that we ignore those very real challenges that might be present. I remember being at an IEP meeting because I work with students who have real difficulties. And every educator who went around the table, it was negative. It's that fixed mindset. This kid will never be able to. This kid is at risk. This kid is all these harsh negative labels. And the mom, Rebecca, is sitting right there, hearing all of these things about her baby, about her child. And you could see every negative word, every challenge that the mom already is aware of, by the way, that she heard was like a dagger to her heart. And by the time it got to me, said there has to be a better way. I refuse to be the bearer of just devastating news and to remove hope from people. And in that moment, it was like a light bulb went off. And I made the commitment to always help parents, to help young people, to cultivate their strengths, to see the potential, to develop the power of yet, and bring hope to people. And in a nutshell, that's what this strength-based approach is all about. It's acknowledging that, yes, there might be some things that we have to work on, but also bringing in the strengths, the support that we could surround about people, and importantly, seeing the potential of young people and in people so that we can help them find their version of success.
There were so many nuggets of goodness in what you just said. So I'm going to try to play back some of the ones that I heard, Byron, which is, first off, is that, when we give these messages to kids about, if they internalize you're not good at math, then what can you do about that? Like, oh, I don't have a math brain, so I guess game over, right? By the way, I could have used your excellent math skills during the pandemic when my then fourth grader was working on Common Core curriculum. I was like, why did they change math? But that's neither here nor there. But again, it's about like, I haven't learned fourth grade Common Core math yet. Like, I can learn it. And it's just a matter of reframing challenges as areas for growth. And like you said, not ignoring that there are real challenges, and students with learning disabilities and things like that do have real challenges, but they can grow from where they are. Just in the same way, Grizzle can grow to be a better dancer. Yeah. And as some of you behind the scenes might know, like, I saw in the script that I had to sing, and I was like, initially I had a very fixed mindset. I was like, I can't sing. And then, I actually practiced, and I was like, okay, I can't sing yet. And I did my best. So I nailed it, right? I don't think anyone's going to be hitting me up for a recording contract. But, if I had stuck with my fixed mindset, I can't do this, then I never would have learned to sing the Looky Loo at the Weather song, which I actually think is really fun to sing even out of tune. So for instance, we hear when we're sitting around the table at maybe at a parent-teacher conference, and maybe you're on the teacher side or maybe on the parent side, and I just want to acknowledge it would be so hard to hear all the things your kid can't do. When we hear these labels that we put on kids, such as they're stubborn, I try to figure out a way to sort of rebrand that. So maybe stubborn is persistent, goal-oriented, driven. So can you talk a little bit about, I know in your book, Hacking Deficit Thinking, you talk about ways to, and I don't think you call them rebranding strengths, but repurposing weaknesses with positive language. Why is that important?
Yeah, and we call it reframing, and reframing with more strength-based language. That's important because we have been conditioned to see what's wrong. We define deficit thinking as viewing the world around you through a lens of what's wrong. How does that show up? It shows up in our language. It shows up in our thinking. It shows up in our behaviors. On a broader scale, it shows up in our practices and our policies and our decision making. And so starting with your language, moving away from this deficit language, I'm a bad kid, I'm not good at math, I'll never be able to do X, Y, and Z. You can simply start to reframe the way how you think about these things. Again, the power of yet. You can move from I'm a bad kid to I have influence, right? When I worked at the middle school, I would hear so much from teachers. Well, Dr. McClure, he's working with those bad kids. He's working with those kids. But all of my kids had influence. And so I reframed with them. No, you're not a bad kid. Let's reframe that language. And we work together to reframe that language. One of the things you mentioned was going from a stubborn deficit language to being persistent, more strength-based language. Another great example, I was very talkative as a child. And so whenever we had group assignments, I would be talking. And then when it was time for your group to get up, it was like, okay, well, let's put Byron in front of the group. I didn't do any work, but I could get up and deliver a presentation of a lifetime. And so putting people in situations to be successful as well. But it starts with being able to shift away from that deficit language towards more strength-based language.
I'm sitting here dying of not surprise. You'll be very shocked to learn, was a talker. And it didn't matter where you put me, I could talk to a wall. So here we are making the best of our talkative strengths in our careers. So let's rewind now. What advice, if you could transport back to little Byron, do you wish that your younger self knew about strengths and growth mindset?
That my strengths would become my superpowers. And what's to me powerful about that, again, what's often viewed as weaknesses or deficits turned out to be strengths that I use in my work. I learned that some of my strengths, I love taking strength-based assessments, and I know you have a strength-based assessment, being able to name my strengths. And one of my strengths that I have is a maximizer. And that simply means cultivating and pulling out the full potential of people, which makes sense why I'm a school psychologist, why I want to help people. As a young child, that was who I was at my core. I just always wanted to work with people, to help people be their best. Inside of a school setting, that wasn't really cultivated in me. It's part of who I was, but it was prioritized. Okay, you're going to focus on math or science. There's nothing wrong with that. But what if, Rebecca, that skill, that strength would have been cultivated in me from a young age? I would be light years ahead of where I was. And so really what I'm pushing for is for young people to grow up with the opportunity, moving and thriving in their strengths from a young age. Rebecca, one of the most disheartening things is I do a lot of public speaking. And when I get in front of an audience, as recent as last week, I was in Buffalo last week, and I asked a room full of people. It doesn't matter if it's 50 people. It doesn't matter if it's 500 people. It doesn't matter if it's 5,000. If you ask a room full of people, what are your top 5 strengths? You might get 1 to 5 people in that room. And every time I do a speaking engagement, it happens without fail. Why? Because our young people aren't asked to talk about their strengths. And so it's a struggle. And so for me, it's super important that we are preventative, that we're proactive, and we're helping our young people to speak in the affirmative about themselves. And what will happen? It will help them develop confidence in themselves. It will help them to be able to advocate for things that they need. It will help them to be on a path towards success faster, and then increase overall well-being. It'll increase people being able to find meaning and accomplishment in their life.
I love that. And that's why I think you're such an amazing school psychologist and school psychologists in general, shout out to school psychs, is that we do focus on strengths and we shine a light on them and we help others see them, and then kids see it in themselves. So I think, thank you for sharing that story. So moms, dads, teachers, grownups out there listening, it might be something you could just do today. Like, what are you good at? What do you love to do? Talk about this episode. Say Grizzle loved to dance, but wasn't good at it and did it anyway. And talk about, Rebecca can't climb a tree, but she wanted to learn how, and just talk about the episode. Use this as a catalyst for talking to your kids about your strengths.
Yeah.
And so now I want to unpack the episode just a little bit more for adults. So I know we have a lot of adult listeners out there. I know it's big ideas for little ears, but there's big ears out there too. What do parents need to know about talking to their kids about strengths? Let's say, a kid comes home from school, they're really down on themselves, and they say things like, I don't have any friends, I'm bad at math, I'll never make the school play, some of that sort of thinking. What advice would you have for adults on how to talk to kids about that?
One of the most important things that parents, and now I'm talking to my parents as a parent because I'm a parent. One of the most important things that you can do to talk to your kids about strengths is talk to your kids. That might seem very cliche, but when was the last time you actually talked to your kid about their strengths, about what they do well, about what they enjoy? And so often we might not be doing that. Now, some of your listeners, Rebecca, they might be doing that, and that's great. But what I encourage the families who I work with parents, and even for myself, is to talk to your child about their strengths. And that might be easy if you ask your child, what are your strengths? And I just told you, if you ask a room full of adults, they'll look at you like a deer in the headlights. So here's some simple ways that you can start talking to your child about their strengths. You can ask, what comes easy to you? What can you wake up and do right away? What can you do better than 99% of people in your class? And what that does, it helps them to think, well, I'll use my daughter as an example. She is amazing in gymnastics, and she will backflip. If she was in this room, she'd be doing backflips right now. But that comes easy to her. So if I said, Addie, what comes easy to you? And I've asked her, and she says, flipping, gymnastics. Like, this is easy. She literally can wake up and do that. Then as a parent, now my role is to expose her. Does that mean taking her to gymnastics classes? Does that mean allowing her to watch some YouTube videos? With caution, right? We might have to limit how much social media our kids are consuming, but nonetheless, how can we expose our young people to these different activities when they show interest? And that's a really important point. When your children show interest in something, make sure that you're doing as best you can within your means to expose them to those activities, to extracurriculars as much as possible. The last thing that I'll say is creating the condition where your young people, where your children can have conversations with you. Well, what do you mean by that? Our young people don't feel that they can talk to us about certain things, whether it be our strengths, whether it be about difficult situations. And so we have to make sure that we're actively cultivating an environment where our young people feel comfortable coming to us to have these conversations in the first place. Okay, that sounds good, but how, Dr. McClure? Here's what you can do. And this is my favorite activity. One, to the best of your ability, have dinner with your kids. And I know like that might seem like an antiquated practice, but you're creating an environment that says this space is safe. No matter what's going on, we're going to pause and we're going to do something collectively every single day as a family unit. And then what? At that dinner table, you're going to practice 3 good things. And what that is, it's an evidence base. It comes from the field of positive psychology. It increases rates of happiness. It decreases rates of depression, and it has longing impacts. And you simply ask your kids, what's 3 good things that happened to you over the course of the day? And then reflect on why. And I do this with my kids every single day. And it's something that they look forward to. And innately in that, we're able to talk about strengths. We're able to talk about difficult things that might have come up. And guess what? Because we do it every single day, our kids now have that safe space where they feel welcome, where they feel that they can come and talk to me and my wife about difficult situations. So I think those are some things that parents can do to cultivate a welcoming space and to begin having conversations with their children about strengths.
I love all of that. And it gives an antidote to the problem that a lot of parents have. Like, how was school? And they're like, cool, fine, okay. And then you don't get anything out of them. You're like, well, okay, like tell me more. But this is a really great practice. And then their brains start scanning for positive things. So because they know next day they're going to go to dinner and daddy's going to ask that. So I love the practical strategies. And I think, I don't know if it was Grizzle or Grizzlette who said it, but you are really good at explaining things. So glad that you were able to come on here and explain to both our little ears and our big ear listeners about finding your strengths. So now we have a very big bonus question. And if you don't like puns, you know, you're probably not tuning in right now. But if you didn't know this already, Byron, that Grizzlette is my actual childhood bear from the 80s. And she's made it to today. And I used to play with her, and my sister had Grizzle, who was her counterpart. I recently went home to my home state and asked her, like, do you still have Grizzle? She's like, of course. So anyway, we had these bears and we used to play together. And as you know, as a school psychologist, play is the language of the child. It's how, you know, kids really talk through their challenges and really interact, learn from each other. So I want to ask you this very big bonus question. Did you have a childhood teddy bear or a favorite item from childhood? Tell us a story. Tell us a bedtime story.
I did. So there's 2 that I'm thinking about. For the sake of time, I'll share one. So when I was young, I had 3 older brothers growing up. And so football, sports, like all of that, that was the thing. For some reason, it could have been a fair or somewhere, I won a pink mouse stuffed animal. And this became like my homie. This was my buddy. And I named the bear Pinky, or it was a mouse, but I named the stuffed animal Pinky. And Pinky was my right hand man. Everywhere I went, Pinky was right there with me. And my older brothers tortured me and Pinky. Yeah, but me and Pinky would go on adventures. We would play outside together. We had some good times. We had some great memories together. And Pinky's been through it all. So Pinky is a warrior. And so that's a memory that I have.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Byron, for joining me. And we'll see all of you on the next episode of Teddy Talks.
Take care, everyone.
Teddy Talks. Teddy Talks. Teddy Talks. Teddy Talks.